Ever wanted to know what it's like to be a vampire? And I'm not just talking about the glamorous bits. What we do in the shadows. Hello and welcome to the Bottled Imp, exploring the realms of fantasy. That's what we do. Oh yes sirree. My name is Ken Boyter and today we're going to be having a look at What We Do in the Shadows, and that is directed and written by, this is another name that I can't pronounce, I'm going to read this, Taika Waititi. I'm so sorry. Taika, and that's his first name. Surname is Waititi. Waititi. And Jemaine Clement. Now, he co-created Flight of the Concords. Yes, 2014 this film was released. Now, I have my brother to thank for this, Colin, so thank you very much. He showed me this and, well, I thought, let's do a little review. Let's find out exactly what we did in the shadows. What we do in the shadows. Well, what's all that about? It is... and I love this concept. It's about 4 vampires set in present day that share a kind of rundown house. And the vampires are actually from all different periods of time, of history of the vampires. So there's certain ages, you know, one's like 500 years old, one's 800, one's 183 years old. And yeah, so that's the concept. It's a mockumentary. So, but it's so... and I don't normally do this, but I am really excited about this film. I absolutely loved it. Now, I normally save that till the end, but I can't contain myself. The concept's brilliant. Basically, 4 vampires, and they really go in depth about what it is to be a vampire, and that's one of the main themes. So it just tracks the life, sort of, I don't know how long the time period of the film is about. Let's say 3 months, 4 months, maybe 5 months of these people's lives, these vampires' lives. And as I say, there's all different types of vampires. So one is from, say, the gothic era, one's from, you know, the more modern vampire, one's from like really ancient vampire. And it just kind of, it's just got that real down-to-earth, excuse the pun, down-to-earth feel about it, you know, as in they're just sharing a house. And so it really kind of, they have little odd moments where they're having little house meetings about who's doing the dishes, for example, which is a brilliant concept. And slowly, as the film develops and unfolds, it becomes, you know, you start delving into their more vampiric? No, is that the word? I don't think it is. If it is, it shouldn't be. Vampiric. I don't know. They're more vampirist. I don't know. Who knows? They're more vampire nature starts to come out. Maybe it affects the way they talk if you are a vampire. So what does that make me? Anyway, yeah, so, you know, so it kind of starts off and it's all a little bit mundane, but it's beautiful. It's really gentle the way they do it. You know, it's, you know, the vampires, they do talk straight to camera, so you really get to start to know their personalities. There's also the theme of immortality, obviously, because, you know, vampires are immortal. So you've got that concept of, yeah, okay, if you are 800, 900 years old, you've been and done pretty much everything. So living, you know, set in New Zealand, by the way, in present-day New Zealand. So living in just like a house, you know, in a suburb of New Zealand with everyday kind of drabness is brilliant. How do they cope with that? And how do they fit in with today's society? So, you know, they go off clubbing. It's not really spoiling it. They go off clubbing. But in fact... that's a good point. You think, well, a mockumentary, you know, what would be the storylines? What could they fill the content with? And it's brilliant because it's really sort of subtle storylines. There's a storyline where there's a lady who actually is kind of one of their sort of slaves, if you like, who does all these chores in the hope that she will become immortal, that she wants to be a vampire. So you've got that storyline that sort of bubbles along nicely. Then you've got... there's I won't spoil it, but there's one of the vampires has like an arch enemy that kind of, you know, is talked about and implied, and it's all a bit hush hush, and then that develops along nicely. And then you have again, what's the main thing that you do as a vampire apart from flying? is obviously drinking blood and going out looking for victims. So you've got that aspect of it. And so, they're trying to lure people back to their house. And that takes on a really brilliant twist as well. So you have all distinct personalities of these vampires. One's very kind of romantic and like a ladies' man. One is a bit more bumbly and a bit more kind of, as I say, like the gothic romantic, a bit more sort of a bit of a dandy. One is a bit more of a thug, is a bit more laddish, is a bit of a wide boy. And then you've got one, Petra, who is the ancient vampire, who is, well, to put it frankly, scary as all hell. Genuinely scary. I don't know how they filmed it or what they did with the special effects, but I was like, whoa. So they've done a really good job with the characterisation, and that is the strength of the film. The characters are fantastic. And did I mention? No, I didn't. It's a comedy. Obviously, mockumentary. It's a comedy. Genius, really funny. The jokes are brilliant. They're not corny, they're not cheesy. There's no real puns. They explore things like, garlic and light and all of that, the usual things to do with vampires. But the comedy comes out of the characters. The comedy comes out of the situations. Not, oh, we've got this joke, how can we paste that joke onto the, into this film? It all you can just imagine the actors. I'm sure a lot of it could have been developed, just actors messing about the concept, getting into character and coming up with comedy situations. Brilliant, really well written, absolute, just hilarious. As you say, I'm raving about it, like right at the beginning of the review. The production values are excellent. There's the special effects are brilliant, really well done. It didn't have a big budget. It was only about $1.6 million, I think. It did make about $6.4 million. No, that's what it grossed. So it did make a profit, which is good for a low-budget sort of independent film. Based in New Zealand, it got a real limited cinema release, which is why maybe you haven't heard of this. I'm just grateful to my brother for showing it to me. It's brilliant. I've showed it to some friends now. They've loved it. It's the sort of film that you really want more people to see, which is why I'm raving about it and thought I'd do a good review of it. As I say, the special effects are brilliant. They're not, again, it's not special effects led, but when they do have the special effects, they serve the story. They're there for a purpose. So well done, really subtle. There's also, the humour, as I say, is brilliant. It's dark humour, by the way. It's a bit twisted, it's a bit warped, because obviously the theme of being a vampire and, trying to not eat people, but suck their blood, it obviously is a bit dark, can be a bit twisted. Brilliantly done, really well handled. And there's different types of comedy. And what was really surprising, I didn't really expect this, was it was very sensitive and tender at times, very emotional. And at one point, I kind of almost, not quite, almost was in tears, because it's a really lovely, again, I don't want to spoil it, really lovely tender storyline that goes through. And the way that it's structured is very clever, because they'll kind of start off with one of the storylines, and then the next storyline will come in, and then you kind of forget about one storyline, and then another development of that storyline, the original storyline, kicks in. And so there's lots of kind of subplots as opposed to one big sort of driving force. But it works, the structure works, it really supports the fact that it's character driven. I absolutely adore this film. What else was I going to say? I was going to say it's very creative. It's one of these films that you go, oh, I really wish I'd made that, or I really wish I'd written that, or been in that, or been involved with it. It's just one of these creative projects that's really imaginative. Just I would imagine, hopefully it was a joy to work on. I'd love to have acted in that. It's brilliant. In fact, you could say, wait for it, it's fang-tastic. I did say I wouldn't do that, but I did. Couldn't recommend this enough. It's brilliant. Go out and see it, well, buy it. Buy it on DVD. What We Do in the Shadows, brilliant. Check it out. So that was my thoughts on What We Do in the Shadows. As you can tell, I'm so passionate about this film. What I did neglect to say, actually, was the fantasy element. I know it's pretty obvious. Obviously, it's vampires. There's that kind of thing going on. There's flying. So from the fantasy element, yes, it's not dragons. It's not high fantasy. It's not, magic. There's kind of magic, sort of vampire magic. They can actually hypnotise people. So there's that kind of thing, which obviously they play on that. It's quite funny. It's very funny. So the fantasy element obviously is a different type of fantasy, but if you do like traditional fantasy, whatever that is, traditional fantasy, I know you're going to like this. It really is of the same sort of ilk. There we go. What we do in the shadows. Thank you for watching. Check us out. And remember, keep it unreal, imps.